Hello, everyone. Here is Gemini AI. Let's talk about filing taxes in Canada, specifically medical expenses. It can feel like a real maze, can it? You're wondering, what can I even claim? And more importantly, what paperwork does the Canada Revenue Agency actually want to see? Well, today, we're going to clear up all that confusion. We're going to demystify the whole process, slide by slide, and get you totally ready for tax season. So let's jump right in. Everything we're talking about today comes straight from the CRA's own guidelines. That way, you know you're getting the info right from the source. This is all about making sure you are 100% prepared. So let's get started with the biggest question on pretty much everyone's mind. So this is it, isn't it? The big question. You've spent all this time gathering your receipts, you've added up all the numbers. But what happens now? What do you do with that giant folder of paperwork? What does the CRA truly need from you? We're about to answer that, and honestly, for a lot of people, the answer's pretty surprising. Okay, first things first. Before we even peek at a single receipt or prescription, we have to cover the golden rule for handling your documents. You know, getting this one part right is probably the most important and most misunderstood piece of the whole puzzle. I know what you're thinking. Wait, what? This feels totally backwards, but this is a direct instruction from the CRA. When you file your tax return, it doesn't matter if you're doing it online or mailing in a paper copy, you do not send in your stack of receipts and forms. It's a super common mistake to think you need to prove everything right away, but the CRA system just isn't set up for that. And here is the absolutely critical second half of that rule. You don't send them in, but you must keep them. So why is that? Well, the CRA works on a review basis. After you've filed, they can ask to see your documents at any time to verify what you've claimed. So the real key isn't about mailing a big package. It's about being organized and having everything ready to go just in case they ask. Okay, so with that golden rule fresh in our minds, let's start digging into the actual documents you need. And the first one, the foundation for any claim you make, is your proof of payment, the good old receipt. A receipt's job is really simple. It's your proof of payment. It's the official piece of paper that confirms a transaction actually happened. Think of it as the crucial link that connects you, the person who paid, to a specific eligible medical item or service. Plain and simple. Without it, you've got no claim. And this is so important. Of all the information on that receipt, what does the CRA care about most? While the date and the amount are obviously key for your own calculations, the one thing the CRA guidance specifically says must be there is the name of the provider. That means the clinic, the pharmacy, or the specific practitioner you paid. Make sure that's crystal clear. That's how they check if the expense was for a legit medical service. Now, proving you paid is just one part of the puzzle. The next layer of documentation is all about proving that the expense wasn't just something you wanted, but something a medical professional said you needed. This is all about establishing medical necessity. This breaks down the two main ways you can prove that an expense was medically necessary. Over on the left, we've got a prescription, something we're all pretty familiar with. And on the right, we have something called a certification in writing. They might sound alike, and they are pretty similar, but they're used for different kinds of expenses. Both have the same core job, to officially back up your claim. So let's take a closer look at prescriptions. A medical practitioner, your doctor, dentist, or optometrist, gives you a formal instruction for a particular item or service. The million-dollar question is, when do you need one? Well, the CRA actually makes this super easy. Their official list of common medical expenses on their website will tell you straight up if a prescription is required for something to be eligible. For instance, things like physiotherapy or specialized orthopedic shoes almost always need a prescription on file to be claimable. And now for certifications. See the similarities? It's also from a medical practitioner, and you also check that exact same CRA list to see if you need one. A certification is basically a formal letter or statement that confirms a specific medical condition which requires a certain product or service. The classic example is a written certification for celiac disease. That's the document that lets you claim the incremental cost of gluten-free food. Okay, we've covered proof of payment with receipts and medical necessity with prescriptions or certifications. So now we're moving up to the highest level of documentation. This is what's required for certain and often very significant medical expenses. It actually involves getting pre-approval from the CRA itself. This is Form T2201, the Disability Tax Credit Certificate. Now, what's so critical to understand here is that this is not just another form you get from your doctor and stick in a file. It is an application. It's something that you and your practitioner fill out together, and then you send it to the CRA to get their official approval before you can claim the expenses related to it. So, how does this whole thing work? This slide lays it out perfectly. First, you check that same trusty CRA list of medical expenses to see if your specific claim even needs an approved T2201. If it does, you get the form, have your part and your doctor's part filled out, and then you submit it to the CRA. After that, you wait for their official approval letter. Once you have that approval, you file it away with all your other important tax documents. And here's a really important time saver. If the person you're claiming these expenses for is already approved for the disability tax credit for that tax year, you don't need to resubmit the form. Your existing valid approval from the CRA is all the documentation you need for this particular requirement. Okay, we have covered a ton of ground from that golden rule all the way to specific CRA forms, so let's pull everything together into a simple final checklist so you know exactly what you need to have in your file come tax time. And this table just illustrates the whole system at a glance. It's actually pretty straightforward when you see it all laid out like this. You need a receipt to prove you paid. You need either a prescription or a certification to prove the expense was medically necessary. And for some specific major claims, you need an approved Form T2201 to prove you have that specialized pre-approval from the CRA. See? Each document has its own unique and vital job in building a solid claim. So let's end with this thought. Your documents are now in order, which is step one. And that's a huge step. But is your claim actually complete? Are you totally sure you're claiming every single expense you're entitled to? Getting your paperwork organized is half the battle, and now you've got the tools to do it right.